Is. We're replaying the song.
Yes.
Great.
All right. My bad. Hi, everyone. Well, then, all right. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out, and happy CultureCast Day. Welcome, Lauren Kleinman. I was just saying earlier, the diva and goddess that you are. Welcome to CultureCast. I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Right on. Well, hey, CultureCast, for those of you, it's your first time tuning in. I love to invite leaders from different industries to talk about how they've been able to create and cultivate cultures where others, in addition to themselves, can thrive, whether it's their family, their community, in small companies and large companies. And Lauren has got this amazing story to tell. I think, I know I put your title in there. She is one of the founding members of Ritual. And she's also founded 2 additional companies where you're the CEO and co-CEO right now of both Dreamday as well as The Quality Edit, which is phenomenal. And the vibe with you, Lauren, this theme around living true to your values and elevating women doing that. I mean, I love it. So this is why we're here, and I'm super excited. And so before we jump into what you're doing now, I'm really curious. How did you get onto this journey of being this innovator and entrepreneur? So who is Lauren, and where did you grow up, and how did you get on this pathway?
Thank you again for having me. Such amazing synergies that led to me being here. My childhood friend, who I haven't seen in probably like 15 years, led me to meet you, Marissa. So I feel like all the stars aligned in the best possible way. I can start kind of with maybe a little bit of my childhood, unless that's going.
Yeah. Let's go there.
My parents were both entrepreneurs. Everyone on my mom's side of the family, which is who I was closest to, were all entrepreneurs as well. So kind of as a child, I saw that it was really like the only path that I personally knew. I got into entrepreneurship as a child. I was probably like 10, and my uncle was in the import and export business. And I noticed that at the time, Razor scooters were sold out at Sharper Image, but everyone in my school wanted a scooter. So I talked to my uncle. He ended up helping me import knockoff Razor scooters, which I ended up developing business cards for, selling all over my school campus, riding it around the mall, selling it there. Obviously, I did all the other traditional things like bake sales. I created a classroom out of my garage and tutored all the kids in my neighborhood.
Oh my goodness.
I imported like Tamagotchis, inflatable couches, all with the help of
wow.
So it goes deep. And I've always kind of just had the urge to, be building things and I guess also be like selling things. But I just always kind of was really excited and felt it was really empowering. I went to school here in LA, studied communications, and kind of out of that, I ended up, my first job was at a startup accelerator. I got to see companies from inception, with one team member, to what we had as kind of like our demo day, where they go out and, present to investors. And basically through that experience, I ended up meeting my next employer, Walter Driver, who was the CEO of and co-founder of a company called Scopely, mobile gaming company. Went there a year after, was there for 4 years. Also just amazing experience. I feel like I got incredibly lucky to work alongside him, who I saw as such a relentless visionary in his own right. And I feel, lucky to just have been surrounded by people that instilled a lot of amazing values culturally for me very early on. And then after that, I met Katarina Schneider, the CEO and founder of Ritual. And for me, I was super passionate about health and wellness and a bit more than mobile games. And so making that transition was an amazing one. And, it was kind of, each of my transitions were scary. It was like, okay, I have like a, cushy job, but my husband pushed me. I pushed myself to try to get outside of that comfort zone. And every time, it ended up working out well. And then I was at Ritual for almost 4 years. Left to start my own 2 businesses with Dreamday and the Quality Edit. And, I think in each of those career transitions, like never really looked back. I think each was so instrumental for like my own growth. And, luckily so far, knock on wood, have turned out to be great decisions.
I love it. Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack. Let me go all the way back to childhood, first of all. What did you brand your own scooters? Since there were no Razor scooters, how did you brand them? Do you remember?
That's such a good question. I've never been asked that, but I don't think they had a brand. It was just no name brand knockoffs. I don't even remember. I wish I had those like cards. Like, did my cards say my name, or was it like
that's hilarious?
I think they probably just said my name and like my phone number, or my home phone number, or something like that. They were not professional, but for my tutoring business, like my mom had a copy machine, and I tried to use like the tools in her office. I remember I'd made her take me to the teacher supply store and used her copy machine to copy all these packets of teacher supplies. So I don't know. I just made use with what I had, but I don't think it was as zipped up as like, making my own Razor brand.
I hear you. I love it though. I think hearing you talk about the kinds of things that you imported with the help of your uncle, whether it's white label, like Razor scooters, Tamaguchis, or blow up couches, all of those things, you had your finger on the pulse of culture, right? And I think about what the kids those days, your community, your peers were really into, and you're able to figure out how to fill a need. I love that. And then the tutoring thing, I mean, that's like early leadership. The fact that you want to serve others and charge them, by the way, right, to tutor them, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So
it's funny, I never reflected on those experiences deeply or in that way, but I think you call out some good points.
Well, it's funny. It's interesting when I meet just natural leaders and to hear your story specifically, how your parents are entrepreneurs and then you yourself just figured out back then, even if you knew what the word zeitgeist was, like what was going on, and the vibe of what people were kind of gravitating towards. Feels like it's been who you've been. And then here you are, fast forward. I love hearing this career trajectory. And I always share this with people too. So a couple of things that I heard too. One is, look, you had leaders who were great mentors to you, and to have that diversity of background of actually going to startups, I think that is high risk. And I also am a nerd. I've worked at a startup or two before, which have also led me to big brands. I think that skill set and the experience that you had specifically, actually that startup experience where you have to roll up your sleeves and pretty much do everything, I think that's a skill that's now needed these days. And, no more can you find companies where there's layers and layers of people. You've got to have a leader who not only has the skill, but also has just the empathy, to support people. So it sounds like you did that.
I tried to. It's interesting kind of hearing how you frame like the leadership from a child, because I acknowledge that I think some of that leadership was like inherent. It was part of my, family. Like I did grow up in that environment, but honestly, it took me all of the steps in my career to be the leader that I am today. And I'm still obviously not a perfect leader and continuously trying to be a better leader every single day. But I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not like something that you have or don't have. I
Yeah.
think there's, certain like traits that might make you a better leader than others. But I think it's interesting because it's taken me time and practice and, doing a live cast or a podcast or even speaking publicly. Like my first job, I wanted to quit when I had to speak in front of a group. Every time I had to
Oh,
speak
wow.
in a group, I was like, this is going to be like the last day that I work here. Like it pained me so much. And I think leaning into those areas of vulnerability and the things that you are scared of is what makes you grow and is what has actually conquering those fears has made me feel more empowered as a leader. And it's kind of this like vicious cycle of I feel more empowered, I feel more confident, and therefore you end up becoming a better leader.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to call it out.
No, I'm glad you called it out. I also love the risk taking and being uncomfortable as, recognizing that as a way of developing your skills, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think about the same thing when you say, God, when you had to get up in front of people, like, am I going to do this? I'm going to quit my job. I remember the first times that I actually had to get up in front of a lot of people and make a presentation, how nervous I was and how people knew how nervous I was actually. And it was that experience and the feedback that just helps you get back up again. And I also love this fearlessness, though, that you talk about and taking risk, that it's kind of addictive. Like once you do it, it just empowers you to do it even more. Because I hear you talk about too, you've never looked back every time you've made a move. And I think about Scopely, for example, and mobile gaming, dare I say, and I've also worked in the gaming sector. I mean, it's for the most part, it's probably different today, very male dominated. And so to navigate in that, I don't know, can you talk about that? Because I think about then moving to a kind of women founded company, like what the contrast with that?
Yeah, that's such a good question as well. I was pretty early on in the company. The company just sold actually this year, like 8 years later. It was
Oh my goodness.
one of the largest gaming exits, like I think of like all time. It was pretty like incredible and epic. And again, I take that as testament to leadership. But yeah, it was interesting. I was definitely one of the only like women. I was in communications, so I wasn't in like engineering, but still, because it was such a small company, I sat next to all men pretty much all the time. I remember back in the day, like all these engineers sitting there were like buying Bitcoin. And I was like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell is this Bitcoin thing? Whatever. Now they're all like multi-millionaires on Bitcoin because they all were doing it. And I don't know how this answers your question, but I do think there's something to like I wish the guys would have been like, hey, Lauren, you should buy some Bitcoin, like back in the day,
Yeah.
I feel like it's such a, it speaks to kind of the walled garden around cryptocurrency. But I think, I guess maybe that being like a bigger signal of, I think sometimes, I don't know, sometimes you feel a little bit left out, but I do think that the culture there was one that valued women.
That's great.
Not to say that everything was always perfect, but I think going to Ritual, like going to Ritual was so much easier because again, like I liked mobile games. I played them. I thought they were fun, but it wasn't like my true passion in terms of something that was really like, ingrained in me and wanting to help other women and being, curious about diving into the intersection of health, wellness, science, and how do you build a brand around that people are going to trust, that will be a brand that sustains for many, many years. So that, while it was still a risk going from a company that's really established to what was just, me and Kat, it felt much more aligned with my values. And I think whenever you have those like taps or knocks of your intuition being like, there's something here I need to explore. I think even if it doesn't work out, even if Ritual hadn't worked out, it would have been the right move, I think, because if you don't follow your intuition, like I just think you gotta life is short. You gotta do
Yeah.
whatever's calling you.
Well, I love that you say that about following your intuition, which if people are still honing in on what their values are and or what is their calling from a career or life standpoint,
Yeah.
you feel it in your gut and your heart, right? Like it's just something that's
Yeah.
telling you to point a certain direction and grab onto something. And then I think about it's interesting hearing you talk about Scopely. And I love this. Actually, I see that someone had just commented that she's here, Zainab, someone that I actually knew at another brand. I ran into her a couple weeks ago, and she and I had the chance to coach up and coming C-suite people for Fortune 1000 companies. I'll just say that. And it's interesting when you talk about, you're in charge of communications, but you're sitting around engineers, and there's all these new things that you're kind of listening into, and they were also kind of peer mentoring you. I think, again, going back to the notion of leadership is not only just the technical trade that you need to hone in on as a leader, but it's that ability to step back and see broadly with the company and actually connect the dots with what
Yeah.
other people are doing. And it sounds like you were in a role, of course, to do that. You may not have been an engineer.
Right.
However, it is about how do you communicate and, it internally or go to market with what Scopely was doing. But then with Ritual, how did you even, so you talk about following your intuition, and of course it went really well, but how did you know, like, how was Ritual kind of the idea that you came up with your co-founder?
Yeah, so I didn't actually co-found Ritual. I was part of the founding
Oh,
team
okay.
with Kat, but I was our VP of marketing, and but Kat was a sole
Got it.
founder. But,
Okay.
so I didn't come up with the idea, but I joined very early on. Before we had a brand and before we had a lot of our positioning, we didn't have any like packaging or any of that. So I helped kind of solidify and develop kind of each of those. And then later in my career with Ritual, moved on to some really interesting and like innovative partnerships, specifically around partnering with publishers and leveraging editorial and advertising, which also became part of the inspiration behind the Quality Edit, which I also now am a co-founder of. But I was always really intrigued by Kat's vision. She was, or she is, a mother, and she started the company when she was 3 months pregnant, and she couldn't find a prenatal vitamin that she trusted. They were all like, with questionable ingredients and colorings and fillings, and these were the vitamins that her own doctor was telling her to take. And similarly, I had always taken vitamins my entire life. But when Kat asked me, so what vitamins do you take? I couldn't think of one brand. So I realized, like, a huge aha moment for me. We actually walked through the streets of Melrose in Los Angeles asking women, what vitamins do you take? Oh, I've taken the same vitamin for the last 3 years, but I can't remember the name. I don't even know what's inside of it. So I think that idea of like adding transparency, but also creating a brand that has a real community that people can trust, can understand what they're putting in their bodies every day, like, was really compelling to me. And it was like, hit me square in the face of like, there is an opportunity here, and there's a lot of white space in this very big category that is like a dinosaur category with all these legacy players that are not really meeting the modern needs of women.
Yeah, I think it's, I love how you were hitting the streets of Los Angeles to do your focus group to understand who your audience and who your consumers will be. Because I think about vitamins too, and it's like it's the mass players who also have a vitamin category. I'll say that, and I know it's a big business. There's specifically vitamins, but what I love what you did, and I know that you say this as part of your headline. It's like redefining the category, right? For vitamins and more specifically for women. And I think you were ahead of your time. Yeah, Kat was ahead of her time in terms of her vision, but then how you all brought it to life. You think about, and now this next generation that's coming into the workplace, especially, how they want to be part of something that is purpose driven. You think about large shareholders for companies now holding companies accountable before they continue to invest more money in sustainability and social responsibility. And it sounds like you were doing that, you
So
know?
yeah, Ritual is incredible. Like just constantly thinking of more and more ways to be sustainable, to be eco-friendly. I think it was just like a couple weeks ago that they announced like the carbon footprint for each
Yeah.
product, like publicly on the website. And that's always been really core to the brand. But I do think that now with like the modern consumer, I don't want to say a lot of those things are table stakes, but like if you
They
don't,
are.
yeah, if you're not a sustainable brand, if you don't actually have a good product, like if you don't have a good brand, if you don't have an authentic story to tell and reason for why this product needs to
Yes.
exist, like I don't think that you're going to survive for the long run. And so I think, yes, it was like early on to be like thinking of those things, but now these days, like those things are the bare minimum that I think you need to really, get the modern consumer interested. But just going back to Ritual, one other thing I wanted to say, and it kind of goes into your question of like men, women. I remember when Kat was looking at kind of like the formulations that were in Ritual, that were advised to be in vitamins. It's like, well, how did we get to this place where we need, this much dosage of this specific vitamin? And she found that basically all of those studies were like from, and I might misquote this, like 1970s, like studies only on men.
Oh,
No
no.
studies had been done on women's nutritional needs. So just like to your point on it, the whole industry being backwards and like, innovating a new category, just like imagine that doctors are recommending vitamins that are based not even on the nutritional, needs of women and what women might be, already getting out of their diet, for example. So definitely a lot there. And I will say I have like a penchant for like wanting to take something and make it my own. I think like we did that with Dreamday with our, performance PR, model, which is really innovative. And same with the Quality Edit, we have a completely new kind of advertising model that we're doing there. And so I think with Ritual too is very intriguing. Just like, I guess there's like part of me that likes being the underdog and likes, doing something new and unique and innovative. I find that to be really exciting.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll also, thanks for that fun fact. I had no idea in terms of vitamins were based on really the men's needs back in the 70s, which is wild, based on nutritional needs for the male gender. I'll just say that. But then I love that you use the word authenticity, because I mean, when I heard of you and had the chance to meet you, I'm like, wow, you look at everything that you stand behind. There's this authenticity to what you do, and it feels real, right? It's based on what humans need. And in this case, for Ritual, what women need. And so I think you're right on in terms of what people want today is not only a brand, but the people behind it who can stand for it. And just really curious before we move on to Dreamday, like how did you grow the company and how did you attract people to, come and be part of this, especially because it was such a category creator?
Yeah, that's a very complicated question. But I think, it starts with, Kat and her initial vision. And I think anytime you're working on a, interesting challenge, you're going to naturally attract people. But I think Kat was also one of those people where she taught me so much about what it means to have an amazing culture.
Yeah.
And it's not about, I think a lot of more male dominated cultures are like, okay, like you're going to work till 12 in the morning, every night, and you're going to work on weekends, and we're going to have no boundaries, but you're going to get free lunch and you're going to get a ping pong table and
I
you're going to
remember that.
whatever. Like that is not culture to me. Like
Yeah.
culture, and we can, I'm sure, get into this later in the talk too, but like culture is living and breathing, the values that you set for your company every single day. And I think Kat was really one of those people that instilled that kind of in me. And I think in terms of how we're able to at least grow the team, 100% was the culture, that we built. And in terms of attracting customers, that's a longer conversation around all the different marketing channels. But actually, as it relates to what we're talking about, I think the authenticity
Yeah.
was always there. It was always genuine. It was always real. It stemmed from a real need. And Kat was willing to put herself out there and, stand behind it. Like, I just think we had so many copycat competitors that literally would use the same photographer,
Yeah.
use the same image, use the same everything, like to a T, even the same capsules, the same pills, like,
Oh, wow.
and it just is not lasting. People, I think consumers are smart. They can sniff out when something is not real. And I think Ritual is one of those companies that have always embodied their values outwardly to their customers, but
Yeah.
also inwardly, with their culture. And that's what I think makes a company that can stand the test of time.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you brought it full circle with not only the community inside, but the community outside. So the employees and the customers. And I love how you defined culture. It is about living your values day in and day out and being consistent with it. And so, and I love that as a definition for values. I believe that it is about attracting people who have the same values too, right?
Yeah.
And so they want to live that 24/7, whether they're at home or contributing to a workplace. And it's not just about, I hear you, I'm laughing when you're like, oh, be here until midnight and we've got a ping pong table and free lunch. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not culture. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I love that you framed it in that way. And you're right, authenticity goes back to really standing behind it. And then the other thing that you're making me think of too is that, and you're the expert, I'm just observing, but I think about brands, right? So outwardly, when companies define a brand to their customers, the popular question I love to ask when I'm advising CEOs today is, everyone's kind of revisiting purpose and values in this new day of working. And they'll say, here, Marisa, here's our new values or our new mission statement. And I mean, there's some really beautiful stuff out there. And I'll just kind of say, well, that's amazing. And this is really customer facing. But if you put this in front of your employees or you talk to them about it, do they feel that too? And,
Yeah.
this one CEO said to me, she's like, oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
No, like we need to go back and figure out if this brand needs to be true. The employees need to feel it. So that's part of culture too, right?
100%. I
Yeah.
think that as a leader, I try to be vulnerable. I try to be, I am human. So I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I try to own up to my mistakes when I do make them. And I think it's important for our team to know that, again, I said this in the beginning, I think, like, I'm not perfect. We're all
Yeah.
learning and growing together. There's room for mistakes on all ends because we're all human. But I think, like you said, you have to walk the walk in being the most wholehearted leader you can personally be. And that inspires a team to really bring their best selves every day as well. And I kind of say, like, we want to encourage people to bring their whole selves to work.
Yes.
People go through breakups. People, have health challenges. People have passions that they want to pursue, or, trips that they want to take, or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, you can't expect someone to be a certain person at work and then turn off their laptop and be a different person, in their home. So I think it starts with, I think, you as a leader, like,
Yeah.
being a good person, having good intentions. And I feel like that seems so obvious and trite, but I think that is really hard to fake. I think it's hard to fake
Yeah.
really caring about your people. So we try to really actually care about our people. And then, like you said, from there, like, clearly defining our mission, vision, values for the company, hiring other people who embody
Yeah.
those values. And then, most importantly, like you said, embodying those values every day,
Yeah.
making sure employees' needs are met, they feel seen, heard, understood,
Yes.
just when times are tough or when they're getting a review. But as a leader, showing up every day, and that's really like half the battle. Showing up, being present, being
Yes.
willing to be vulnerable, being accessible, I think is so important. And yeah, we definitely try to embody that. I think we try to embody a culture that is collaborative, supportive, nurturing, and positive. And I think one good example, actually, without going on too much of a tangent,
That's
is
okay.
I I told my team that I wanted to do yoga teacher training. And
Okay.
oh my God, are you trying to be a yoga teacher? Like, are you leaving us?
Yeah.
Like, no, I've just like for many years, I've wanted to deepen my yoga practice. And
Yeah.
I feel like we're at a great place in the company where I have such amazing, senior level support. Everyone is really firing on all cylinders on the team that I feel like I felt like I had the ability to go and do that. And so I chatted about it with the team and everyone was like, so, excited. But I think also interestingly, like one of our senior team members, our chief of staff, she was like, not only do I love this for you, but I love
Yeah.
this for me because I
Wow.
feel it gives me the permission to, if I have something that I want to pursue, be able to at least ask for that, be able to figure it out with you kind of like collaboratively. And that's how I want our team to feel. Like, again, we care about them as individuals and as people and, not just as employees or like cogs in a wheel.
Totally. And I love that you went there. I love that you went there around your philosophy on leadership, because I always say that culture is also a reflection of leadership. And what I love that you're saying is, and it's not trite. I think it's come from a place of kindness, come from a place of like really caring and empathizing for and with people.
Yeah.
If all else fails, and believe it or not, I mean, a lot of leaders are learning how to do that now. It's
Yeah.
wild, right? I think about that. I love that you went there, that if you start from not only, yeah, bring your full self, as a leader, you need to accept all of that too,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's not just like, hey, we have a culture where you can bring your full self.
Yeah.
It's only true when leaders actually want to embrace and see it all, and and help direct the energy as needed, right? And I love too the example that you brought. I think I saw you posting something about your yoga teacher training. It reminds me of a little bit of just that vulnerability and that openness when you share a goal with somebody. They also want to be part of your journey. They want to hold you accountable. And I
Yeah.
love too that your chief of staff, one of your team members kind of said, and not only do I love it for you, but then it also gives me permission to go pursue my passion, right?
Yeah.
And that it's okay to do that. I
Yeah.
love that you shared that story.
Yeah. She
Uh,
was like, I've always wanted to do, professional coaching, like career coaching. And I was like,
yeah,
let's like, figure out a course where like you can, do that. Like, as long as it's not like crazily interfering with, your work, here, like, I'm sure she'd learn a million things that would be
yeah,
really valuable. And similarly,
absolutely.
I feel with yoga training, the poses are like 10% of what I've learned over the last week. Everything else is how do you better use your voice? How do
Yeah.
you command a room? How do you show up as a leader? How are you embodying vulnerability? And that self exploration, like I feel like, makes me not only a better person, but, a more empathetic and vulnerable leader to the team.
I love that you're using those examples of yoga and with coaching as well, because I think development and leadership skills can come from anywhere. And I'm going to nerd for just a second with you, but this is a great example of what diversity is to me. It's when you engage with a thing or a thought or an activity, and then really be introspective about, okay, how does that translate to what I'm trying to do in my life? And I
Yeah.
love and I love how you also brought that back to, and how it's going to help others in your workplace, first as yourself as a leader, but then what you might be able to bring to the table, to help continue to drive innovation in your company. And what you're talking about reminds me of a leader that I've gotten to know pretty well. He's the CEO of Krispy Kreme. Here we are talking about yoga, and I'm going to bring in Krispy Kreme. But what I've learned from him, and I'm stealing this shamelessly, so I'm going to own that I'm stealing it. But when he meets with people throughout his organization, he always talks about dreams and goals, right? So what are you dreaming about? And the fact that you're allowing people to pursue their dreams. But then he also talks about goals, like how are we working together to accomplish this goal for the company? And then he talks about love, giving goodness and recognizing and being present with people. But then there's tough love, right? When it's like, and there's time when you have to give some tough love,
Yeah.
right? To get people there. And so I love that you went there. And I also love the vulnerability that you demonstrate as a leader. Uh, that that will get people to enroll in you as a human being. Like they're like, well, I want you to win too. And
Yeah.
so that's amazing.
Thank you.
So let's talk about Dreamday. And I love this because you have coined this, it's not even a phrase, it's a thing that you do and now others are doing, performance PR. So let's talk about how you ended up founding Dreamday, but then what is performance PR?
Yeah, thank you. So I thought after I left Ritual, I was going to like take, many months hiatus and chill and do nothing. And I quickly learned I'm not good at doing that. So
Yeah.
within the first month, I had chatted with a couple founder friends that I thought would be interested in, basically I was consulting on everything under marketing and growth. Started consulting for those companies and was so grateful that I had, founders that believed in me right off the bat. I think that was definitely a blessing and maybe not usual.
Yeah.
But I started consulting for them, and I realized that there was like a couple like very more specific things besides marketing and growth that I had done at Ritual that were unique and innovative. And I realized that basically I had managed all of the top PR agencies in the US pretty much during my time at
Oh,
Ritual,
wow.
my time at Scopely, was always managing different PR agencies. And I felt like they were all, a lot of them, great.
Yeah.
But I felt like they were only getting us half of the way there, so to speak, and that they were maybe delivering the press, but not really understanding the bottom line in terms of the impact that press had on the company.
Yeah.
So whether that was, I don't know if you've ever received like a PR report, but a lot of times PR agencies will say, okay, we delivered, 1 billion UVPN this month for you. And you're like, but I didn't see any traffic come through that article, or I didn't see any increase in revenue in my business. And there was this huge kind of like disconnect that was like staring me straight in the face. Because in parallel, I saw how publishers were evolving, where they have editors, but they also have commerce managers. And the goal for the publication is not only to surface the most interesting brands and products, but also to surface brands and products that are going to help make the publication money, and forge these basically like mutually beneficial relationships.
Yeah.
Similarly, I could not find an affiliate agency that I trusted with our brand. Felt like Ritual had very high brand integrity. We didn't do a lot of discounts, and all the affiliate agencies also felt kind of stuck in the dark ages, just turning on deal sites and loyalty sites, very cookie cutter approaches. So through like, I don't know, a year of kind of like trial and error, talking to, prospective customers, talking to my current clients, I realized that there was like a better way to do it, basically. And so what we do now with performance PR is combining the best of PR with the best of affiliate marketing as part of one synergistic scope to really meet the modern needs of publishers, but also and brands. So when we are, let's say, pitching, we're not only sharing, again, what's interesting and compelling, but we're sharing, here's an affiliate link, and this is how your publication can make money from our clients. And when we share our results with our clients, we can say, here's all the press we got you, but also here's how it's driving traffic and revenue and an actual, return. Because I think also, managing agencies, sometimes you're doling out $10, $15, $20,000 per month. And you're like, but what is the impact? So not that our work is dollar for dollar impact, but at least we can start to see, hey, here's the top performing publishers for the brand. Here's the editors that like seem to really understand it. Here's kind of the angles that are like interesting and compelling that we should dive further into. And being able to, for me as kind of a data-driven person, understand that those data and analytics and be able to apply that into our work has been really impactful. And yeah, I think a lot of agencies now are like adding affiliate, divisions, and even some saying that they do like performance PR, which is all great because I feel like, all rising, what's the rising tides?
All boats. Yeah. A rising tide lifts all boats. Wow.
So yeah, I think, but it's a very exciting time and space to be in because this landscape is shifting so quickly. And I feel like because it was always ingrained from day one in our model, we're kind of the first to adapt.
I love that. And I know that what was staring you in the face, as you said, was like, hey, there's all this data. And I love that you are data driven. I think it's such a good lesson. So you've innovated in the PR space and have created this performance PR. I think that that example of you doing that can apply to any trade. I think about people, for example, having been in human resources, and there's a lot of people who tune in here where, they are the people person for their startup organization or their large organization. And sometimes we overlook the value of data, data that you can collect on your people and how it impacts both the top and bottom line and finding those correlations. So, and then you've turned that into a business model. So I love that.
Yeah. I think that, whenever there's pain points, it's like, okay, figure out how to do it better, figure out how sometimes I consult, entrepreneurs that are thinking about leaving their company, maybe they're nervous. And I feel like most of the time I try to give them the push and the confidence, like someone gave me when I was first starting, consulting and then building an agency. But I try to tell them, like, what do you uniquely do well? Or what do what kind of slant can you bring to whatever is maybe more broad that's going to make it uniquely yours? Maybe it's a niche of a type of client, or, maybe it's more just around kind of the services. But I think if you are going to go out on your own, like, you got to find something that obviously not only resonates and, prove out that people want what you're offering, but ideally also have like a very specific niche that you can kind of claim as your own.
That's awesome. I love that. And it is about differentiating, but also being authentic to who you are, is what I'm hearing you say. But I want to hear too, like, Dreamday. So why Dreamday? Like, is there a meaning behind the name?
There is. I love that you asked that question. I don't get asked that much, but it's pretty cheesy. So fair warning.
I'm sure it's not.
So I have failed to mention this so far, but I'm a mom of 2 kids, ages 6 and 3. And when I was starting out, after I left Ritual, I was like, what do I want my dream day to look like? And I'm just going to work back from there. And so it's funny because my dream day was like, I'm going to eat healthy foods and make a smoothie in the morning. And I'm going to go for a hike and I'm going to work with a couple clients and, then I'll be done by 3 and be home with the kids and be like super chill, perfect balance lifestyle. And it's so funny because after I left Ritual, like, I had never worked as hard as when I started, Dreamday.
Oh my goodness.
And I actually experienced burnout, like, probably like a couple times, but
oh wow,
I completely overworked myself, and it was my dream day because part of Dream Day also meant for me, I want to work with clients and founders that I'm inspired by. And as long as I'm passionate about what I'm putting out into the world, like, I was really excited about that. So even though I was working really hard and even though I burnt out, I was inspired. I wanted to be doing what I was doing every single day. And I wanted to, show up and keep making it happen. I just took it a little bit too far. But it started with that. And I think what's been interesting about my journey is you could say that maybe that wasn't what I had originally intended.
Mm-hmm.
It was my intention for a dream day, right? It wasn't like overworking myself. But I think as we've grown the team and as I've matured as a leader and as I've learned to like relinquish some of my controlling tendencies, I feel like I'm much closer to what I envisioned for my dream day and prioritizing my own self-care, prioritizing my, time with my kids, prioritizing balance. Now, generally, like, I have to let my nanny go at 5. So I pretty much don't work after 5 unless it's something urgent that comes up and it's a quick Slack message. So I think I've grown up with the business as well and gotten better at, my own boundaries. And obviously owe that all to the team who, like basically have stepped up and, you know, allowed me to kind of not be doing everything on my own, because obviously in the beginning it was just me.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Now I truly feel like I'm better embodying that idea of dream day every day.
I love it. It's your North Star. And I hear you in terms of like, okay, I love how also this consistent theme with everything you've shared. It's like, maybe not everything is perfect, right? Like you have this vision and then there's reality. And
Yeah.
especially when you're starting something, and you talked about being burned out. And I know that's an epidemic, right? Today, I think in the workplace. And I know people are now working flexibly and working, remotely and or in, IRL with each other, but then burnout is a real thing. Like, how did you deal with it?
A lot of work, honestly. And I feel like I had like a tribe, so I feel really grateful because I also acknowledge my privilege and having a therapist that was covered by
Yeah.
insurance that I spoke to every, week. I really started becoming religious about therapy during that time. And I don't have one exact answer, but it was just like, decide what you want. For me, that was like better balance, and
Yeah.
what small steps can you take every day. It's not going to be immediate, and acknowledge that, and there's going to be ups and downs, but what small steps can you take every day to help you get there? I hired that chief of staff, this year. She's made an incredible impact on taking so much off my plate, and is so valuable within the company. So whether that's hiring, other resources, or, people that you need to feel more supported, or self-care, definitely, like, I prioritized, and just, one step in the right direction
Yeah.
every day, finding things that give you pleasure, that, give you joy, that are not work, and trying to do more of those things, trying to be more present with my kids. It was kind of a working with a lot of different people, and then hiring and prioritizing, more self-care, which sounds kind of obvious, but I think the important thing is, like, decide where you want to go. Maybe it's like you create a vision board, or
Yeah.
it's just writing it down. Decide what you want your dream day to look like, and then work back from there. What tangible changes do you need to make in your life every day? Maybe for me, it was like I started taking a lot more of my calls walking. Like, these
Oh,
are calls
yeah.
that my clients are not on camera. Why do I need to be on camera?
Yeah.
Let's just take them walking. And, just a simple act like getting, 10,000 steps every day, or making sure that I have my water bottle, like drinking 2
Yeah.
liters a day. Like, sometimes they're not the really complicated things. I think we tend to neglect ourselves in really simple ways: sleep, hydration, nutrition,
Yeah.
taking care of our soul, our spirit. And so just integrating some of those things back in are what really helped me.
I love that. I love too that you're talking about the holistic being, like your overall mental, emotional, physical wellness. I think that's really important. And the fact that, and actually, I think LinkedIn user, which might be Jeffrey, might is talking about prioritizing self-care and prioritizing family. I think it's important to then not have that burnout.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool that you're sharing that, and thank you for being so open too about, hey, sometimes you need to lean on others. And the one thing too, I think about innovation, and I learned this from a friend whose name is Franz Johansson, and he wrote this book on diversity and innovation, which was called The Medici Effect. And I'm hearing you talk about this. It's a consistent theme too. Like, it's those small executable steps. If you have a vision, like, you're not going to get there overnight, and innovation doesn't happen in one try. Like, and it's not linear. Like, I think you have to try it and then check and adjust to get to that next level. And so I
Yeah.
love that you're saying that too, in terms of not being burned out, as an example. And so you're running 2 companies right now.
Yeah.
So the quality edit, and I know you'd mentioned you got that idea as well when you were at Ritual, but tell us about that.
Yeah. So I have an amazing co-founder, Lee Joslowitz. And basically we were both at Ritual together.
Oh,
And a
okay.
lot of the kind of innovative things that we were doing and working with different publishers, similarly, I guess, and somewhat to Dreamday, we realized that a lot of the top tier kind of older school publishers were not really working with brands in like performance oriented ways.
Yeah.
And together at Ritual, we were driving a lot of the most lucrative partnerships for the business. So for example, we were the first brand to forge any sort of, advertising partnership like we did with BuzzFeed back in the day.
Yeah.
How successful that was. And then we tried to replicate kind of that model with other publishers. But what we realized was that a lot of them just didn't understand. And a lot of them had many like layers of approval and just were used to like working in a certain way and didn't really want to like learn. We were like literally having calls with publishers being like, you guys should really like monetize like this way. It'd be a lot more, it'd be better for you, it'd be better for us. But it was just like very hard and they just like didn't get it. So in addition to us being avid consumers ourselves of like all these different cool direct-to-consumer brands and not feeling like there was a publication that really spoke to us in terms of those recommendations. We also knew that there was like a more interesting kind of advertising model that we could build, but the publication to help brands succeed in that way didn't really exist. So together we built the Quality Edit about a year after I started Dreamday, and it started as just kind of like a passion project that we were working on the weekends or on the side. And we got our first client, which was Our Place, and which was a former client of Dreamday's as well. And we kind of tried to test what we thought, would be lucrative for them. It basically like worked in the first couple of days. So we were lucky to kind of validate that our model worked and have that, buy-in from a brand right away. And fast forward to today, Our Place has been like our longest customer, and they've been with us for over 3.5 years as an advertiser with us. But I think, having that kind of buy-in so early and that vote of confidence was just so important. And again, just kind of one step at a time, it went from being a passion project and something we're working on the side to, a real business. Lee, quit her job about a year later. And obviously I was already, at Dreamday. So I spend my time between both companies. There's amazing synergies with both, and that they all work with a lot of, amazing direct-to-consumer brands. And both kind of are at the intersection of content and curation and conversion, but two separate and distinct entities for now.
Yeah. Although I think there's a theme there too, in terms of, and you mentioned this earlier about, part of the idea behind Dreamday is also the people you dream of working with, the people that you want to be spending time with. And if people take a peek at like what's going on at Dreamday and those brands that you've helped to grow, and then at the Quality Edit, what you've curated for other people, it feels like part of what you're doing too is just helping other people grow and helping these brands grow in the right way. And then I think there's this level of authenticity too, in terms of the brands that you stand behind, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually just did our first reader survey at the Quality Edit. We found that 90% of our readers trust us for recommendations.
Amazing.
Which is really high. I was like, why is it not 100%? But that's my perfectionism, which I'm working on. And no, like 90% I learned is like extremely high. So, and I think that does go back to like, we authentically will not back a product that we don't, believe in, that an editor hasn't tried and loved. And so, I think helping, customers make better purchasing decisions. Like I think there's so many products and brands now out there, and being able to kind of summarize it for them in a way that helps them make more informed decisions faster, I think is, we hope really helpful.
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially these days with people pushing product and information through, Facebook's kind of old, but
misinformation,
like Instagram, et cetera, like sending all that stuff. Like, I think it is about giving people information on and from a source that they can trust. And I love asking this question, and it's almost like unfair to ask it, but I'm going to anyway. I always ask my guests, like, okay, what's one thing that you're loving? Whether, what are you totally into these days in terms of watching, eating, wearing, listening to, et cetera? Like, I love talking about just pop culture in general.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like especially everything going on in the world right now,
Yeah.
like I try to limit my media sources right now
Hmm.
because I feel like I'm a pretty empathetic person, and it kind of cripples me if I let it go too far.
Yeah.
I still try to stay informed, but I'm very cognizant, especially doing yoga teacher training, of like what information I'm getting and what I'm kind of like allowing into my energy. That said, there were two books that were required reading our first week. So we had to read both books in a week, that I highly recommend for anyone that is looking to improve their relationships, their work, their leadership, just themselves in
Yeah.
general. The two are Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. Pretty famous book. I'm not sure if you've heard
Yeah.
of
Oh,
it, but
yeah.
probably why I'm talking a lot about vulnerability, because, she really harps on the vulnerability and how important that is to have in kind of every facet of our lives. And then also The Four Agreements by Don Ruiz Miguel, I think is his name.
Oh, okay.
It's just like a great book that you can probably read like 50 or 100 times over the course of your lifetime and just keep coming back to these four agreements and principles that help you lead a really authentic, intentional life. And yeah, I think both of those have just recently made a really big impression on me, and helped me show up as the best version of myself in relationships and family, and obviously with myself as well.
Wow, I love it. So Daring Greatly, great book. And yes, Brene Brown is all around vulnerability. That's kind of how she made a stamp in mainstream, I think, on how that's so important in life and in leadership. But the Four Agreements, that's new. I'm going to look that up. I
Yeah,
mean, that
check.
sounds like, yeah, very
Also,
cool.
also a pretty big seller, and it's very short. So you could probably read it in a night or two. But I almost feel like it's something you could keep in your purse and like just continuously refer back to.
Oh my goodness. Well, before we wrap, I'd also love to just say you've given so much wisdom and just have been a great example of, all right, be human, live your values, and have a big vision for what you want to do and just take steps to get there. I mean, I'm thinking of the theme that throughout everything that you've shared, but if there's one thing people should be doing who are listening right now or who will be listening in the future to create a better life where they can thrive and others can thrive, what's like one more piece of advice that you want to give? One thing.
I feel like I've shared all my
Yeah,
nuggets. No, but actually, I just told this to my friend this morning. Like, focus on being your best self. I
I
think it
love that.
starts there. What lights you up, what gets you excited. And I think by living your best self and being the most authentic version of yourself, you not only realize your own potential, but you inspire others as well.
Oh my gosh, what a way to wrap. I love this focus on being your best self. I agree with you. It starts with you and your authentic self and full authentic self. I love it. Well, Lauren, how can people get a hold of you? Where can they find you if they want to reach you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great place. I'm
Great.
Lauren Kleinman on LinkedIn, or my email is lauren@dreamday.la or lauren@thequalityedit.com. You can follow our social media, Dreamday LA on Instagram, or The Quality Edit on Instagram as well. But thank you so much for your time. This was such an inspiring conversation. I'm so inspired by your background. I wish we could talk about that for an hour. I want to know everything about how you got to where you are
Oh
today.
my gosh. Well, maybe someday we can find
Yeah.
the time to do that. But I am actually ending this with inspiration. I'm just so thrilled to have spent this quality time with you. And
Thank
so we're going to wrap with everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And Lauren, we'll see you soon. Bye,
Sounds
everyone.
great. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.